Hello, my gorgeous familia. I am Dr. De Luna, your favorite spicy doctor, educator, and yogi. Today, we're going to talk all about trauma. And is your trauma creating your drama? I think it is. You're going to want to tune in and listen up. Okay, my gorgeous friends. So let's be real. Life's kind of hard. Life's a little bit challenging. And I find it hard to believe that you or anyone listening to this, watching this, has not experienced some level of trauma. And as a medical provider, I'm really grateful that the collective consciousness is opening their eyes to the influence on trauma and how that can impact longstanding health outcomes and also just your day-to-day reality. Because for real, babies, is your trauma perpetuating your drama? Are these patterns that have been instilled deep in your nervous system, are they showing up on a day-to-day basis and influencing your ability to enjoy your life? I think they are. And let me explain to you why. So, you know that you started inside of a woman, right? You were inside of her womb. So your sweet little body, nervous system, soul, started to develop in there. And that environment in which you developed in already started to set the tone of what is going on inside of your nervous system. So if your mother experienced significant trauma, if your mother was, restricted as far as what she was able to do, to say, to eat, really anything traumatic to your sweet mother created neurochemicals that were then swimming around in her bloodstream. And guess what? You were drinking her blood. So you received all of those neurochemicals. So that environment absolutely plays a role. However, independent of what happened while you were inside of the womb, you were born. And I don't know if you remember when you were born, but being born is kind of traumatic. I don't know, you get smushed out of a little hole or you get opened up in an operating room. And that process, when you enter on the other side into this world, you're typically in the sympathetic nervous system response. What does that mean, you ask? Let me pause and get a little bit nerdy. So your nervous system is extremely intelligent. And there's kind of two different main arms that we're going to talk about. One is the somatic nervous system. Soma is the kind of root of the word body. So somatic are things that involves your body. So you have your sensory nervous system for your soma, for your body, things that you can touch, that you can feel. And then you also have the motor system. These are how you move, how you pick things up, how you run, how you walk. That is a motor action, the somatic nervous system. On the other end of that, we also have the autonomic nervous system. These are things that are kind of running behind the scenes, things that you don't ultimately believe that you have conscious control over. However, being a yogi, we're going to talk about how you do have some conscious control over it. But for the purpose of this little intro conversation, pretend that you have no control at all. And the autonomic nervous system has two main arms to it. It has the fight or flight, which is the sympathetic, and it has the rest and digest, which is the parasympathetic. We are born kind of freaking out. Think about it. You can't do anything yourself. You are fully dependent on this woman, this creature, to feed you, to take care of you. You simply can't survive on your own, okay? Just being the creatures we are. So you were born in a stressed state, sympathetic. And when I say stressed, this is normal. This is the normal physiological way that you come into the world. Those of you that have babies or interact with babies, their heart is beating fast, they have short little respirations, and that's because this is the sympathetic nervous system kind of getting things moving, getting that energy flowing. As we are growing, evolving, your brain really lays down a lot of foundation. So we have endless amounts of neuroconnectivity potential in our brain. And we also have something that is called neuroplasticity, meaning that your brain is consistently laying down different networks and different paths to travel. So you can teach your brain to do something beneficial or not beneficial. And that process will start in infancy when you're starting to learn and integrate the world. We also have two different sides of our brain. Yes, we have the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere. Have you ever seen one of those pictures where it shows the right side of the brain as this abstract, beautiful watercolor painting, and then the left side of the brain as, like a dude sitting in a cubicle doing math, crunching numbers? Those are big kind of examples of what the right side of the brain and the left side of the brain does. So the right side of the brain is more so background perception, more so taking in the big picture. Left brain is much more detailed, much more fine-tuned, much more structured. So a baby, have you ever been around a baby? Can they even see you? No, their eyes are, all googly eyed. And it's because they're primarily in the right side of their brain. They're taking in the external environment. Around age 3, the left side of the brain will take over. And what is a 3-year-old's favorite thing to do? Touch, look. What is that? What? That is their favorite question. What or why? And it's because they are truly trying to understand that fine-tuning nature of the world and how it works. I'm sharing this detail because as we develop, our brain kind of flip-flops from the right side to the left side, from the right side to the left side. And of course, both sides of your brain are always on, don't you worry. But it's predominant that one side is developing over the other. And then we see different skills come up during this time of this evolutionary history. However, life is hard. As I mentioned, life is hard. And when we are developing and when we are being raised, there are so many things outside of our control that our sweet little nervous system is trying to adapt to. What if your parents get divorced? What if you had to witness abuse in the home? What if you were abused? What if someone in your family got really sick and they needed to be taken care of? What if someone in your family had a abuse issue and that was something that you were consistently exposed to? That deep internal tension that your nervous system was exposed to is now creating this internal environment in which you do not feel safe. And of course, right, you're just a sweet little baby angel trying to figure out what's going on in the world, and your nervous system will try to help you show up to that moment in the best way that it can. And sometimes the best way that you can show up to the moment is by mildly dissociating so that you don't feel things. Have you ever done that? I have, just a few 100,000 times. So I'm sharing all of this, the right side, the left side, the right side, the left side, and all of these different things that can come up, because if there is something significantly traumatic that happens to you while your brain is developing, which your brain is probably still developing, honey. But if anything happens during that time, it's almost like the neurons in that side of the brain pause. They pause for the storm to pass. So anything that was supposed to be really developed at that time, structured, or I guess bringing more precise function to, that will fall to the back burner. So in my practice, I work a lot with individuals who are working on building neuroconnectivity and who are working on getting different parts of their brain turned on. Because remember what I said about neuroplasticity. Your brain wants to do things that you ask it to do better. So if you are asking your body to release some of these old patterns, it will take conscious effort to put them in place. But let's talk a little bit deeper about what these patterns do and how they can show up for you. So some of those things that I listed, the traumas that can go on at home, they are called adverse childhood experiences. You may have heard of these before. They're called ACEs. And it's a little bit concerning, the studies that are out on it. If you have had 6 or more ACEs, and honestly, a lot of us have. I have. Just gonna be honest, I definitely have had more than 6 of them in my little baby reality. You are more likely to die 20 years earlier than someone who has not had 6. Like, what the literal fuck? 20 years earlier? Why? That's kind of dramatic, isn't it? But I think that speaks to the level that trauma can have on our nervous system. And I don't know if you're aware of this, but every single cell in your body is connected in some way, shape, or form to your consciousness. So what is going on in your nervous system? What is being released and produced by your glands, by your organs, your hormones, your neurochemistry, your vitamins, your minerals? They are circulating around and bathing your cells. So if that external environment is one that was fueled by fear, which again is a common reaction to anyone that has experienced trauma, your cells are going to be living in that fear-based state. And as a result, you are going to kind of circulate in these patterns because they feel familiar to you. Our bodies, our nervous system, our consciousness likes to do what feels easy, and that's ultimately what habits are. So let's get a little bit nerdier, shall we? As we evolved in these bodies on this planet, evolution started relatively from the bottom up. And I say bottom up, meaning the bottom of the nervous system up. At the bottom of the nervous system lives your brainstem. Your brainstem is what we call, in this evolutionary model of brain development, it's the triune brain theory, by the way, if you're a nerd and you want to look this up. The brainstem is considered the reptilian brain. If you want to insult someone, call them a lizard brain. Just call them a little Lizzie, because lizard brain ultimately means that they don't have any higher level of consciousness at all. They're just functioning like a lizard with their brainstem. Your brainstem is what keeps you alive, so it's essentially there to just help you pee, poop, have sex. That's all it's there for. Eat, that kind of a thing. But you are not showing up to life. You're just simply surviving. That's all it is. Survival brain, reptilian, lizard brain. Okay, and then we move up. Then we go into the limbic system. The limbic system is actually a collection of a few different parts of your nervous system that are working in a way that they create these subconscious patterns, and they're ultimately there for survival as well. So this part of the brain is unique in that, and I say part of the brain, but again, it's a few different networks that are working together. It is there to remind you of trauma. Truly, it is. If you experience something traumatic, a part of your brain is going to light up called the amygdala, and it is going to send out a fire alarm signal that something bad is happening. What is right next to the amygdala is where some of your memory centers live. So your brain is going to remember that traumatic event, and it's the goal, the intention is that you don't do that situation again. Of course, so many things that are traumatic are outside of our control, right? But think about if you were like an animal in the savannah, and you're going to your favorite watering hole, and then all of a sudden there's a beautiful lion there that wants to eat you. It actually eats your mate. Whoops. So you need to remember to not go to that watering hole, at least during that time of day, right? Because you don't want to get eaten by the leon. That's lion. So that is the limbic system. This is truly where a lot of us live. Whether you're aware of it or not, a lot of us get stuck in this limbic system. And part of the limbic system is a network of different neurological centers called the basal ganglia. The basal ganglia is something that I could nerd out about for hours because it kind of creates this set point to deep structures in your brain to create patterns. So movement patterns live here. Thought patterns live here. Really anything that becomes a habit can live in this center because it's subconscious. We still haven't even reached the cerebral cortex yet, which is like the walnutty looking thing that we all consider the brain. There's lots of other things that are influencing your nervous system as well. So this aspect of the brain is what is really coming alive with any adverse childhood experience. So what can happen then is that you can get stuck in these patterns of existing, and ultimately it's rooted in your desire to feel safe and to survive. As a reminder, your body, your nervous system is perfect. It is. And if you don't think that it's perfect, then you need to pause and kind of unravel some of your self-sabotaging beliefs, because your body is always trying to show up for you. Your nervous system is always trying to show up for you. So even if that means that you have picked up some skills or some habits that you don't want, pause and thank yourself for doing it, because it helped you get to this point where you can actually see them and decide that you don't want to take them with you anymore. So we're gonna keep on moving on up. So now, remember, brain evolved from the bottom to the top. So now we're all the way in the top of the head. We are in the neocortex. Neo means new, cortex, cerebral cortex of the brain. Now we're in the walnut. But primarily, I want us to talk about the frontal lobe. So the frontal lobe is what makes us human, and it's why I love yoga and why I love dancing so much. Did you listen to my first episode? By the way, I talked about some pretty gnarly mental health things I went through. And by far, one of the most medicinal things that I did for myself was fall in love with yoga, because it pulls you from those deeper brain structures up into the walnut, into the frontal lobe. This frontal lobe essentially has the ability to inhibit everything below it. It can just stop all those little mental tornadoes that we love to go on. And let's be honest, part of us must love the self-destruction, right? That's why we keep dropping on into it. But the frontal lobe goes, oh no, we don't need to do that anymore. I just want to be happy. And this frontal lobe is something that is unique in the sense that as humans, as we evolved, we developed a very, very, very integrated frontal lobe, which is why we've reached this level of human development. And because of this, that is why different aspects of activating the frontal lobe can completely change your life. So, ways to activate the frontal lobe. You can do any type of movement. I kid you not, any type of movement triggers this frontal lobe. Just think about something you like doing, do it, and you'll have a better day. You're gonna calm all that background noise of craziness just by moving your sweet, gorgeous body. Next, things that you can do for the frontal lobe. You can do anything that is mindful. I think that the word mindful can be intimidating, right? Because when you hear the word mindful, a lot of people think that they just need to sit in some sort of cave and meditate for hours on end. That's not what mindfulness is. Mindfulness is anything in which all your senses are engaged, in which all of your focus is centered on one object, one thing, one situation. So in yoga, we do something called the drishti, which is where you focus your gaze on something. Of course, your brain is going to want to look in every possible direction because we like to be distracted. But in you focusing your gaze on one thing, Have you ever thought about that you have to inhibit the desire to look away? You have to inhibit the desire to look at your phone. You have to inhibit the desire to scratch your nose or whatever thing you're doing to distract yourself from focusing. So that is mindful. You can truly just bring all your awareness to something in the room. That's actually a really good point. If you feel yourself going crazy, say that you're in a conversation with friends and you can feel your trauma getting triggered. You can feel it. You can feel it. You could just stare at something. I probably wouldn't stare at the person who said it, who triggered you, because your eyes are going to look like they're trying to kill the person. But you can look at something else in the room and you will feel your energy ground. You will feel your nervous system, that buzz of the nervous system, start to calm. That's a fabulous way to do it. But truly anything that is mindful. So of course, things like breath work, pranayama, meditation, those are mindful, but anything that you are there fully with your energy and your intention can be mindfulness. So I just wanted to drop that little fun fact in there. We also can do something called fast eye movements, which are called saccades in neurology. And this is where your frontal lobe pushes your eyes to the opposite direction. So my left frontal lobe is pushing my eyes to the right. My right frontal lobe is pushing my eyes to the left. You can do these fast eye movements. You'll want to target on both sides, and you are truly giving your right brain a little massage, left brain a little massage. What does that do? That releases a bunch of neurochemicals to help you focus and to help you calm everything that's going on in the background. What does it do, ask me? Why not just take meth every day instead? You know, as a doctor, not really a big fan of you taking meth every day to do that, because guess what? Your brain can do it itself. If you didn't get that joke, Adderall is meth. And if you don't believe me, just look it up. It really is. I wouldn't give it to your kid, sorry. Ugh. So here we are, we're still in the frontal lobe. We are there. When you activate this part of your frontal lobe, your whole life can change. My teacher called it the executive center of the brain. So think of like a very powerful business executive. They are getting shit done. They are checking off their list. They are going from meeting to meeting. And in general, I hope that they're happy. Someone who is not living in the executive part of their brain, they are in control, or they are being in control of whatever is going on beneath the surface. So imagine that you are just in the ocean. You're just in the ocean. Maybe it's a tsunami's coming in. You're just being rocked around, rocked around. Your limbic system is the vision of you being in that ocean and letting the waves smush you onto shore, throw you around. You have no control. But your frontal lobe is like, oh, wait, I'm actually just being thrown around in a foot of water. I can stand up. Wouldn't that be powerful? Quite powerful, right? So let's go back to these adverse childhood experiences, because again, they are exquisitely common, and I hope that I didn't trigger your trauma in thinking that you're going to die 20 years earlier if you've had 6 or more. But studies have shown this, and it is truly because when your body feels that it is not safe, your nervous system will change its output to help you feel safer. But some of those ways in which we do it aren't necessarily healthy. So your body will protect you in a way that sometimes you just will be fully disconnected from your body. This is called dissociation. It's almost like your head is cut off from your body and you are not present. You are not there. And I had an experience a few years ago in which I had a stalker. I also talked about that on my first episode. So I wasn't a child, but I kid you not, I was dissociated from my body for a very long time. I wasn't in, and I could feel the moment that my soul dropped back in and felt safe enough. But you have to feel safe enough to feel. If you don't feel safe enough to feel, your body is going to kind of cut off your ability to feel. It's going to make you feel a little numb, a little nummy gummy. So your nervous system will compensate to try to keep you in a place that is stable, but sometimes that doesn't feel good. I find that a lot of these adverse childhood reactions and the nervous system patterns that we create because of it do live in the basal ganglia. They do live in this limbic system. So now you might have these habitual ways of showing up to life. You may, whether you're aware of it or not, you're probably attracted to partners related to the trauma that you have because your sweet little baby, inner child is trying to heal. And we heal by facing things that have caused us trauma. And if you are experiencing something that can trigger that deep internal feeling within you, you will have a habitual reaction. That basal ganglia has set you up, has a pathway that it likes to go that feels familiar, probably started from when you were a child, and you will go down that pathway. However, remember, the frontal lobe is how you can say, wait, I'm going on a merry-go-round. I actually don't want to be on that merry-go-round. I'm going to stand up and jump off of it. But that merry-go-round is not only influencing your thoughts, it's also influencing your chemistry, your neurochemistry, and your blood chemistry. I work a lot with individuals who have seen many different doctors and who have an array of symptoms that these doctors can't necessarily find one specific cause for. And it's not because it's a disease. It's not because it's something pathological. It's because energetically it's creating a functional imbalance in the body. And by this, these are interesting things like autoimmune disease. There's been a lot of autoimmune disease that has been up on the surface of our reality lately. And really, from my perspective, autoimmune disease is the same thing. It's all the same thing. It's just whatever marker you have, you can put someone in that box and label it as a disease. But really, it is where your immune system is targeting itself. For those of you that don't know what autoimmune disease is, it is truly that. It is when your immune system circulates in your body because you have an internal army, which is your immune system. We can be very grateful for the internal army. But it is circulating around, and usually it labels things that are not you and pushes them out. It will clear them out of your body. It will get the army to target it and to clear it. However, the immune system can get confused, and I work a lot with people with trauma in which their immune system now goes, oh, you're the problem. You're the issue. We have to attack you. Your poor sweet immune system. So for some people, that shows up in the gut and they have inflammatory bowel disease. For some people, it shows up in the throat and it shows up as thyroid disease. For some people, it shows up in the brain and it's MS. For me, it's all the same thing. It's you turning that energy towards yourself. It's self-hate, it's self-harm. And a lot of that comes back to this root of trauma, of feeling like you are not safe. If your immune system does not feel safe, the army gets louder. I also see a lot in my practice that things like trauma can lead someone's immune system to be hypervigilant, spiky. So have you ever had a sneeze attack, an allergy attack? That's histamine. Histamine is kind of your body's first arm of defense in that it makes your blood vessels get leaky, it makes things get swollen, it helps your army move where it needs to go. However, histamine doesn't really feel good in the body, right? It's red, it's hot, it's itchy, whatnot. I find that a lot of individuals that are in this hypervigilant state, AKA meaning this world is not safe for me, their histamine can be off the charts. So they're allergic to everything. We should not be allergic to everything. We evolved on this planet. At least I think we did. Again, I said in the first episode, I don't know if I'm from here. I might be an alien, but as far as I know, I think I evolved here. So your immune system should be able to say, oh no, that should be here. And it should definitely not think that you are the problem because honey, you are not the problem. You are healing. So if you are someone that has severe allergies, someone that has an autoimmune disease, someone that is just very self-destructive, and I kid you not, babies, I was so self-destructive for so long. It's easy to be self-destructive. We have been taught to hate ourselves, and we are kind of breaking off that armor, and I hope that I am here to remind you that it is fucking safe to love yourself. It is fucking safe for you to be your biggest fan, to love on yourself, and to see that trauma as something that helped you get to the level that you are at today. Because that's a big piece of this too, babies. We can't be mad. We can't be mad at the people that did this to us. Because think about it. They were probably traumatized kids too, whose nervous systems just learned how to survive. And some of those coping mechanisms were exquisitely destructive, not only for themselves, but to others. So part of your healing from this trauma not only has to be to see that it's there, to accept that it's there, to have responsibility for the part of yourself that is carrying forward, but also to find forgiveness to the people that have harmed you because they're just trying to heal as well. And I know that that statement traumatized some of you. I know it did. I know that I triggered some of you. I can feel it through the camera, but that's where some of the healing exists. The forgiveness, the freedom that forgiveness will give you will let that buzzing of the nervous system settle so that your nervous system can feel safe in its environment because anger, resentment, guilt, they are creating a different environment for your brain, for your nervous system, which is ultimately telling every single cell in your body that you are angry, that you are resentful, and that there needs to be some action because of that. We have a lot of control over these things, and it's easy to think that you don't have control, but that is you living in your little lizard brain or you living in your limbic system. Remind yourself, you can stand up out of those waves. You can work through this. There's a lot of other ways that I like to stimulate that frontal lobe activation, and it's almost like I envision pulling things from the lower part of myself, from the subconscious or deeper parts of myself up to the surface so that you can see them. Because that's what the frontal lobe does. It takes things, it looks at them, and analyzes them. Yes, you can analyze it in a more colorful, broad, open, right brain sense, or you can look at it in a more fine, detailed, nuanced sense, left brain. Regardless, the frontal lobe is actually seeing it. So many of us, when we experience trauma, because our brain almost short circuits when we have trauma. I don't know if you felt that before. Have you ever had like a nervous breakdown? I have. It basically feels like all of your emotions come together. You feel them all. You feel them all scattered, but then they come together, they smoosh, and there's nothing left. It's almost like they all cancel each other out. At least that's what it feels like for me. Or felt like. Definitely not having a nervous breakdown right now. I am fucking killing it. Anyway, when you experience something traumatic, the right hemisphere of your brain and the left hemisphere of your brain almost disconnect. They almost disconnect for a moment, energetically. They don't disconnect, not like half your head is falling out, right? But in that way, they can't integrate the information. They are not going to store it as well, at least the detail of it. However, your subconscious memory is there. It remembers, it's getting stored. Have you thought about how many things your brain is taking in on a second-to-second basis? But it's only what you're consciously allowing to pull up from the subconscious mind that you can see. So this is also happening in terms of trauma as well. So there will be parts of you that did shut off to that experience. That was your brain trying to protect you from feeling. Really, you can thank your body for doing that. You can thank your adrenals for doing that too, because your adrenals release a fuck ton of cortisol, and cortisol swims around, goes to the memory part of your brain and the temporal lobe and goes, shh, please don't remember this, please. But your subconscious memory still does, and it's still living there, and it could come up in unique situations. So in order to kind of do that pulling, that excavating of the subconscious into the conscious mind, when you feel something, don't say, oh no, I don't feel it. It's not real. It's not real. That is you discounting your experience. It is real. It is real. And it happened. All the trauma, it happened. So when you see it, when you can say, okay, I'm feeling really anxious in this moment. I'm feeling anxious. Whatever it is, sit with yourself, say it, label it, because these deeper centers of the brain, they don't have labels. They're just kind of swimming around, experiencing it. But the frontal lobe is what can label things. It's what can justify and understand. So as you pull that emotion from the subconscious tornado that it is creating in your mind up into the frontal lobe, you can label it, and then you can process it and release it. You have to feel in order to heal. I do not think that it is realistic to think that we can just brush these things under the bed, under the carpet, smush them in the closet, and assume that we are going to heal. I have felt a lot of things that I didn't want to feel. If I had the choice to feel them, of course I would say no, but in those beautiful moments of pain comes the liberation of deciding to let them go, and also the forgiveness and the compassion that you can have over the person that you think may have traumatized you. Again, they're just trying their best as well. So that's a huge one, is bringing that emotion to the surface, labeling it. Inner child work is one of the most powerful things that you can do. Name your sweet inner child. I call her sweet baby Ash. My name is Ashley. I call her sweet baby Ash. Sometimes I can feel that she's the one that needs support, that she's the one that's freaking out. And it's usually in situations that my nervous system is triggered. To be honest, I will never, ever, if you're thinking about asking me out on a date, by the way, if your lips are purple from wine, know that I'm going to have to get up and leave, because my nervous system cannot handle that. I'm working through it. I'm working through it right now as I hold my sweetheart. But there will be things that trigger you, whether you're aware of it or not. And you knowing that that is your trigger will then give you the freedom to say, A, I'm either not going to put myself in that situation, or B, this is just my trauma being triggered. I'm going to soothe my inner child so that I don't freak out on this stranger. Beautiful, right? So these little experiences that we have as children have enormous impacts on our health, our wellness. Again, 6 or more ACEs. And adverse childhood experiences, they don't have to be anything really dramatic, because of course there are very traumatic things that can happen to all of us, you know, homelessness, poverty, feeling emotionally abandoned. Or it could just be these subtle little pieces of verbal abuse. It could be feeling like your needs weren't met. It could feel like you were waiting a really long time at school for your mom to pick you up. These things are traumatic for a sweet little baby nervous system that doesn't know what's going on. And as a reminder, if you have 6 or more of those, you could die 20 years earlier. Like, what? However, if you empower yourself to see those parts of yourself, if you empower yourself to feel and to sit with the inner child and to remind them that they are safe, it's almost like you're reparenting yourself. And I'm not saying that this trauma has to come from your parents, but your inner child needs to be soothed, and that's one of the best ways to do it. Another way that I love to release these subconscious patterns is by working into the body, embodiment, because every emotion that you feel will trigger some type of reaction in the body. So remember, the nervous system, right? We're back. So in the somatic nervous system, you have the sensory and the motor. You have the sensory information coming in, which is triggering a motor output. In the autonomic nervous system, a lot of the sensory information coming in are signals from inside of the body. So it could be things that are going on in the internal organs. It could be different emotions, different feelings, different things swimming around the bloodstream. They will trigger some motor output. And a motor output in the autonomic nervous system is just some action. So it's not necessarily something as simple as picking something up like it would in the somatic nervous system. It's a little bit deeper. However, have you ever been out in nature, or if you have a pet, and if, a really loud firework goes off, or if something scary happens, what are they going to do? You'll watch their body language change, and they're going to shake. They're going to shake it up like a little chihuahua. We don't do that. I feel myself shake often. I even let myself shake. But in general, it's not like we're all experiencing something collectively and then sit in silence and shake it off, right? That's where that saying comes from, shake it off. It's truly your nervous system almost releasing all the static energy out. If you don't allow yourself to release the trauma in that moment, your nervous system is going to brace itself. It's going to brace itself. And that can be in muscular engagement. So muscle tension really just means that a muscle is active. And this muscle can be active because it's anticipating that it's going to need to react. Maybe it's your hip flexor anticipating that you're going to have to run away. Maybe it's your shoulder anticipating that you're going to have to punch someone in the face. Maybe it's your jaw anticipating that you're going to have to bite someone's nose off. I don't know. But this muscle tension can build up and it can hold. Do any of you practice yin yoga? You ever been in like a yin forward fold and then all of a sudden start crying because of something that Uncle Jerry said to you when you were 2? Yeah, that's because it was stored in your connective tissue. How have I not talked to you about fascia yet? I love fascia. What is fascia? So, vegans, cover your ears. So if you eat meat, and if you're peeling them, I love meat, by the way. I think we know this, right? I love meat. Buy me a steak, please. So as you're pulling back the skin of an animal, I love turkey skin. I love turkeys. So if you're pulling back turkey skin and you can see all the fascia, all that gooey, spiderwebby stuff, that is fascia. And you'll notice that it's not just straight. It's not linear. It really is webby. It creates this internal network between your skin and your muscles, but also between muscle fibers. It's what's holding all of your organs in place. It's wrapping around your nerves, your blood vessels, your lymphatic channels. So it really does create this network of communication. I describe this to my students. It's almost as if you are dropping into the earth in Avatar. You know how all the trees have roots that are talking to one another and holding one another? That is what the fascia does in your body. I'm not making this shit up, by the way. This is real. You can look it up if you don't believe me. Fascia. So this fascia has wisdom. It holds your structure, but it also has so many nerves in it. So when your nervous system experiences anything that it wants to react to, your body will respond. And a lot of times your fascia can contract because remember, it is holding everything. So even if your sweet little stomach reacts to something traumatic, that can be held in your fascia. If your muscles are holding tension, that can be stored there as well. So when you are releasing the fascia, which you can do in a myriad of different ways, I'm a yogi. I love yin. If you think that you're too hard to do yin, I guarantee you're gonna cry. Guarantee it. It's gonna be great. I love yin for that reason because you drop into the fascia. And as you hold yourself in certain poses, yin yoga, really you could walk into a yin class, you might do 3 poses in that hour. You're just flopping on in and you have to sit with what comes up. And as those of you know that sit with things, they're not always comfortable. So in that moment, you have to ask yourself, am I going to let my limbic system take me up, and away? And am I going to sabotage this class and scream fuck and disturb everyone? No, we are not going to do that. Instead, you are going to have to breathe. You are going to have to teach yourself how to drop out of the sympathetic nervous system into the parasympathetic and sit with it. You will breathe, you will feel, you will cry, you will laugh, you will sweat, all of it. And that pattern that told your body to sit in that way, that told your body to hold itself in that way, can be released. And that is so powerful. Something that is also important to consider is that this fascia, this connective tissue web, is not only holding your organs, you have skeletons inside of your cells. They are called cytoskeletons. Cyto means cell, skeleton, yeah, we know what a skeleton is. And this cytoskeleton has little arms from inside the cell outside that attaches to the fascia. So as you release your fascia, as you release the pattern that held you there, you're also releasing any energetic pattern that cell has then adapted to keep you alive or to keep you in that pattern. Because We like things that feel familiar. We do. And sometimes sadness feels familiar. Depression feels familiar. Joy can also feel familiar, right? But it's like your body wants to sit in its discomfort sometimes, or wants to sit in where it's familiar with. And when you release those patterns from the physical level, you also release them energetically, release them at a cellular level. And I kid you not, your physiology will change in a phenomenal way, in a way that no pill can do for you. It really can't. So yin yoga is one of the ways that I love to do it. You can also do any type of connective tissue work. Rolfing is phenomenal. I do something called craniosacral therapy with these little paws right here. So craniosacral is really working on the fascia. That's all it is. These little paws drop into the frequency of fascia, and my hands almost act like flashlights. And I can follow where in your body things are stuck and where they are trapped. Anyone that has experienced craniosacral therapy knows that it is trippy, because what comes up when you are releasing these things? A lot comes up. You might have flashbacks and memories from childhood. You might have different emotions come up. Hot, cold, feelings of flowing energy. Anything is possible, and you really don't know until you lie down on the table. But all of those patterns are things that were stored in that connective tissue, and releasing them frees you. The fascia has been called an emotional straitjacket before. That's kind of trippy, huh? Because when we experience emotion, again, your body is going to react. That is a very, 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 very strong sensory input, is emotion. So as your body reacts, just think about someone whose heart has been broken. Whether you're aware of it or not, your shoulders do come forward and you protect your heart space. You kind of cave in. If that was happening on an ongoing basis, your body's just holding itself in this way, know that your body is continuously turning itself over. So your bones will start to move to hold you in this direction. Your connective tissue will move. Your muscles will move. So this is just where your body likes to stay now, with your shoulders forward, your heart protected. And opening up your heart is going to feel very vulnerable, but there is a way to reverse that pattern. However, your body is going to go where it likes to sit. So have you ever played around with a plastic bag? If you were to smush your hand into the plastic bag, you know how there would be an imprint of your hand there? When you take it away, it still remains. That's what your connective tissue does. So it likes to sit where it's comfortable. Where you ask your body to go is going to be where it sits. And your emotions can tell your body where to go, which is why we can get stuck in these emotional patterns until you choose to sit with it and to release it. Which is why in yoga, a lot of the times the poses that kind of create a lot of internal tension or create a lot of emotion. I'm not talking about pain. I'm not talking about you sitting in a fold that hurts you and is causing you to have a nerve fire. I'm talking about something that feels internally uncomfortable because of the emotion that it evokes or the internal sensation that it evokes. That's usually because there's something there that is stored in your body. And releasing that can release the pattern that you are choosing. Because really you are choosing the pattern. Whatever you are choosing not to change is something that you are choosing to actively strengthen, because the brain likes to do things better. The more that you ask the brain to do something, the more that it will do it, for better or for worse. So with all of this, I hope that you're feeling empowered, that you can choose to change these patterns. You can choose to see them and say, I don't want to carry that anymore, especially if it's a very negative emotional pattern, because you have to have compassion for yourself that emotional pattern came up first and foremost to keep you alive. Thank you. You were alive. You were thriving enough to listen to this fabulous podcast. You are going to subscribe and share. But you can then see that it is ultimately up to you. It always has been. And I think that as humans, we like to think that it's something outside of ourselves. Even for myself, a lot of times I was like, oh, it's because of this, it's because of that, because of trauma. Yeah, those things happen to me, but what do you do with it? What happened to you is not your fault. It isn't your fault. I'm going to say that again. What happened to you is not your fault. It probably actually had nothing to even do with you. Probably had to do with the person who did it to you. All of them. And they had no one else to take it out on. They didn't even have the intention of hurting you the way that they did. But they did. And for you, you might be holding that. You might be saying, I am the victim. I am the victim. This happened to me. Now this is your story. Please fucking stop. That is not your story. You are not a victim. You can choose to see that, to actually thank it. To thank it for getting you where you are, and to set it to the side, and to choose to show up as yourself the way that you want to show up. Because all of these experiences, they mold you. They create the person that you're meant to be. And for me, I'm really grateful for everything that I experienced, because it's allowing me to have this conversation with you today. It's allowing me to support my patients in a way that maybe they wouldn't have felt supported or heard otherwise. So If you're someone that likes to numb yourself, to not feel, know that you are significantly limiting your healing capacity, not only physical pain-wise, mental health-wise, but also on a cellular physiological level, especially if you are someone that is dealing with any self-sabotaging, any self-destruction, autoimmune type picture. So, is your trauma creating your drama? I would say yes. I would say it is. But can your trauma turn into your power? I would say fuck yes. It absolutely can. So I encourage you today, especially after you listen to this, maybe just whip out your journal. If you don't journal, I would definitely recommend journaling. It's a really good way to process trauma because you want a way to process this. You don't want to just do this on your own. Yes, you can sit with yourself in yin. You can sit with yourself as you process these things, but it's really nice to write it out. I'm a huge advocate of mental health support. I'm a huge advocate with working with someone that you know and love and trust. I'm a huge advocate of having friends that you could say fucking anything to and not being scared that you're going to scare them off. Because that's not what friends are. They can sit with you in all of this discomfort because they've probably experienced something as well. But I encourage you to whip out that journal, to just let yourself write, to see what has come up for you, and then to say, do I want to take that with me or not? Because remember, you can stand up. You can hop into that frontal lobe and you can say, I don't want those patterns. I don't want the drama. But remember, you have to take responsibility. You do. You do. Yes, you do. All right, my incredible friends. This is just skimming the surface of trauma. We're going to talk a lot about it and how it plays into different health aspects, but I hope that you found this valuable. If you want to send this to someone that you have traumatized, I fully support that. Make sure to share this, to like it, to subscribe, turn your notifications on because I'm going to be blasting you with content with all sorts of stuff. And I'm so excited to dive deeper into this so that you feel empowered to take control of your life and to let go of these parts of yourself that you don't need to carry anymore. Thank you, Ma. For our brands. Mwah.